Hello, this is the Backdrop Weekly Outreach Meeting. Today is, depending on where you are, either November 11th or 12th, 2021. We discussed a little bit before we start the meeting. There's no official agenda laid down, so we might as well just discuss about various outreach meetings. But before we get into that, what we usually do is we go around the room and introduce ourselves. I'll start with myself. So my name is Greg. I'm joining from Greece, generally interested in anything related to Backdrop, and I'm here to help us again. I'm going to call out Robert.
I'm Robert Lang, bug folder on the internet, coming to you from Altadena, California. And I work on various odds and ends documentation, and lately been spending time on Rubicard. I'll pass it to Tim.
Tim Erickson, I'm St. Paul Tim. Sorry for the, I think you heard the YouTube video start. I couldn't find my mute button. It wouldn't work. Anyways, yeah, I'm a little frazzled and distracted today by a site launch that was supposed to happen 2 hours ago, and my colleague is working on right now, and I'm watching out the side of my window. So, but there's a lot of interesting stuff going on I'm working on a number of interesting backdrop stuff, and I think we have some things we could talk about today. So looking forward to the meeting. Martin, you haven't went yet, have you?
Oh, I'm Martin Price, also known as Yorkshire Pudding on the internet. I'm relatively new, but I try and get involved testing and fixing bugs where I can. I'm trying to build up my skill in coding, and so trying to increase what I do. So yeah.
Okay, so there's plenty of things that I can think of, but let's start with the the past outreach. Sorry, the past Backdrop Live that happened a couple of weeks ago. I thought that there was an influx of people that started, being active either in the forum or Zulip, or helping the issue queue, either raising new issues or chiming in on existing issues. And I'm thinking, if we have a list of the names, the usernames, and they already, are joined either in backdropcms.org or Zulip, preferably, how we could engage with them, say, in a few weeks' time from now to see how they're doing. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Yeah. We have not done any follow-up email to the Backdrop Live participants, and we should, and it was my intention to do so. So, I mean, I would have liked to have done something sooner, but I think your idea of waiting a few weeks and doing something else to just sort of let people know that if they have questions that we're still available. We might be in a position right about now where we could do both. Is do the immediately after stuff, but also it's been a couple weeks, so like you said, just sort of follow up. So,
yeah, I'm not a fan of immediately either, because people might want to do do some research and have time to digest and work or test things that they picked up during the Backdrop Live. So I would like to give them a couple of weeks before we sort of start touching base again.
Sure. I mean, I don't see a downside to doing it sooner, in the sense that there's, well, okay, let me suggest another thing, which is that we shouldn't wait on, and we should do, but we've never done before, which is like a post-event survey. So most Drupal camps I'm in try to do some sort of post-event survey. We have talked about it before. We've never done one after any of our Backdrop Lives. It was certainly on my mind for this one. However, you can't wait too long before you do that. Otherwise, people forget. In fact, I could argue that we're almost too long now. We really wanted people's opinions within a week afterwards, I think. But we're, it's probably still reasonable.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know that we've done any surveys, at least other than the the one priority court, the development survey. So I'm not sure like how we would, I think that's one of the reasons I didn't sort of jump on it sooner was, you know, in like Drupal, Twin Cities Drupal Camp, we would use SurveyMonkey, right? And I don't know if we would, if that would be an acceptable tool for us, or if we would end up with a big discussion about which tool to use and should we make our own web form. And
I was meant to ask, does this task tie up in any way to the CV sort of thing?
well,
Is,
that's
is,
good.
is that something that CV is capable of doing, or?
Okay. Oh, Robert, do you know? I don't know of that feature in Civi. It does a lot of things, but
Yeah, Civi doesn't really have a good facility for surveys. We've ended up using either web forms or, but some of our editors are not real crazy about web forms because there's not good facility for slicing and dicing the information. So they switched over mostly to SurveyMonkey.
okay. Welcome, Joseph. We're just talking about, we're following up a little bit on Backdrop Live and talking about doing a post-event survey and how we would do that if we did it. Does anybody think it's too long after the event to do that?
No.
Is it still fresh enough in people's mind?
No, yeah, I think it's still valid. And if we wait too much longer, maybe it will be too late, but yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't we, after the site launch today, I might have the focus to get a survey done. SurveyMonkey would be a lot more convenient than trying to do it in web form for the reasons that I think, that Robert just mentioned. I don't know what their policy is anymore. It used to be able to do a fair amount of stuff for free. Does anybody use SurveyMonkey for this kind of stuff recently? Do they still have a good free policy or free plan, or do we have to pay?
I've heard of it, but I've never researched into it. Each time that someone needs to do a survey in the company that I work for, they usually use Google Forms or something like that.
That's another option. Yeah. Has anybody done a survey recently? How did you do it?
I've just recently done a survey using an open source one called Lime Survey. It looked good to start with, and it appeared to be working fine. But one of the questions, I was trying to do something a bit more complicated, and it worked absolutely fine in desktop, but didn't, just ground to a halt in mobile. But that was sort of trying to do some sort of more complex logic. I think if we're trying to do a very simple survey, I think we can pretty much pick and choose. It's if we want to start getting complicated, that's where it might be trickier. I was just apparently you can do polls on Zulip.
Oh, sure.
As well. So
maybe we should. I think we should keep it simple. So maybe we should just try creating a web form. It'd be interesting to test this, to do a web form on our event site.
Yeah. And it would be more convenient because we already have the people that are registered have accounts and we have their emails, so we can sort of like.
Okay.
The simpler you make it, the more likely people are to fill in, really. Okay.
I'll see if I can swing that maybe this weekend. It'd be nice to send out something early next week, asking if we do it with a follow-up, asking people to fill out a short survey. We'll try to keep it simple. I will look for some feedback on it. If anybody wants to submit some thoughts in advance, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's like three to five questions and maybe a free text form should be plenty. And like whether the format was like, did they get what they were looking after out of the event, frequency. Do they like the idea of doing it 3 times a year, more often, less often, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, we have a little bit of a problem in that most of our feedback is the feedback we get at the end of the event. And at the end of the event is all the people who've stuck it out and who clearly got what they wanted, right? That's why they're there at the end. Anybody that tried to participate and left, we don't hear anything from them. And so we hear this sort of universally good feedback from the people who stuck it out and got something out of it. But I think we may be missing from other people who, if we asked them, would say, yeah, I tried and it just didn't work for me at all and I left.
That's one way to see it. And it's like by design, the people that are disappointed because they couldn't participate, they won't be interested to fill a form anyway. Like they might not even bother, most likely. But the thing is that for the people that did attend, what can we do to improve it and keep them coming? So if you see it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that if you just get your feedback from the final session, that's a very skewed.
Yeah, no, it's like I think we had 50 people register and then about 30 showed up. So we can also send emails to those 20 that didn't show up, right?
Absolutely. We will send it to everybody who registered.
Yeah. So
no, I'm not arguing against the survey. I'm arguing that the feedback we got in the final session when there was eight people there at the end of 2 days, that information was skewed. I'm not worried. The survey will get, that will also be skewed, but in a much less so way.
In the meantime, I look at the Survey Monkey. I don't see any free plan or anything like that mentioned.
They may not have that anymore. So let's just try Webform.
Registering is for free, but the plans that they have, so it says that the basic plan is free. The standard monthly plan starts at $39, I'm assuming US.
Okay.
I'd imagine for the sort of numbers that we've got, the free plan would probably be fine.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should just go ahead and give Webform a try. If I find I'm hampered and it just isn't working for me, then I won't get hung up on that.
Yeah, if we're just asking 5 simple questions,
right? And
we're going to download it all into a CSV table and look at the answers. Webform will do that.
Yeah,
I think that'll be fine. Other outreachy stuff.
We had an interesting comment by a new person in Zulip where they suggested that we move the focus from the front page of the site to mentioning Drupal to showcasing what Backdrop can do instead. I kind of agree with that, but not now. So until Drupal 7 is end of life, I think that we should stick with the Drupal alternative tactic, and then yes, we should sort of like try to de-emphasize the similarities or the origin of Backdrop from Drupal and so on. Which is still, I think it's valid to keep around the. So one thing that we have at the homepage is the section where we have the features, and one of them is along the lines that if you're used to using Drupal 7, then you're going to be comfortable with D7. With Backdrop. So I think that's a valid thing to keep around, like the familiarity. But yeah, it's a valid.
You're on mute. You're on mute, Tim.
I'm going to need to leave in just a second to get back checking my launch. And before I leave, I'll just say, interesting. There was some interesting feedback there. I generally tend to agree that we can't give up on the Drupal 7 audience. I think this user, though, had some other, that was part of his feedback. The other feedback was just about like the content, being able to find things, better filters, things like that. And one of the themes that came up in Backdrop Live this time, and Robert, you didn't get to be there, but there was quite a bit of feedback on things like people saying, well, they were very, or they would say like organic groups is really important and nobody's ported that yet. And then we would say, but well, actually somebody has ported it. It's just not, there's no release of it. And we realized very quickly that if you were just coming to Backdrop and organic groups was a big concern for you, that would be really unlikely for you to figure out that it's available, that somebody has started to port it, and that you could contribute and help you might not figure out the status of that, or other modules that are sort of in progress without releases, that we don't do a very good job of exposing those. And so there was talk at Backdrop Live, for example, about maybe having them show up in search results, but just not having a download button, or something like that, because what we want to do is let people know about unreleased projects that might be available, but not make it easy for them to download and install something that might break their site. So
might be a good idea if we do that, if we have a way, and possibly just sort of a fairly light touch way, but a way that people can express an interest in a particular module, so that they don't just see it and right, well, I can see that this is in progress, but express an interest, because I think it probably probably see that where there's a lot of interest in something, it gives people motivation to pick something up again, because if they're not getting any feedback, then they might say, I'll shelve this because I've got feedback on other things. So if we can get people who are interested in the module that's not there yet to express an interest, it will help to sort of develop a dialogue around that module.
Can I jump in quick, because I gotta go.
Sure.
I think good feedback. I think some other feedback that we've sort of gotten is that too many of these tools we do have ways for people to do that, but right now they're obscure, they're in GitHub, and it's like some people have suggested, can't we move that kind of stuff to the forum? Like maybe the request ports should be in the forum instead of in GitHub, because the kind of people who are requesting ports, aren't likely to go to GitHub. Anyways, I gotta go.
Yes,
great.
Sure.
Just before I go, I made you host.
Yes, I saw that.
If I don't get back, you should be able to just end the YouTube stream at the end of the meeting.
Yeah,
Okay?
sure. Yep,
Okay,
thanks.
so good. I'll try to be back, but maybe not. See you guys.
Okay, see ya. I had some thoughts on that, what you just said, Martin. So basically how things work now is a node for any project is not created in backdropcms.org unless there's a release. And I was thinking that we could, if we decide to do so, it needs some discussion, we could change the hooks and have the node be created the moment that the project is created on GitLab, but showing, that there's no available release on, I'm not sure, because this is tied with a project module, I'm not sure if it's going to accept it, like creating a project without a release in backdropcms.org. And we would need to figure out how we show the status of the project. Like, is it currently being ported? The good thing is that the way that things are configured now, if there is a module node on the backdropcms.org, there's a link to the GitHub queue already. So that would get people there. What we can do is we can have a similar integration so that its node in Backdrop CMS that is a project gets automatically a forum thread where people can start discussing the specific module. So, or maybe we could allow comments on the nodes themselves while they're being, developed or something like that. But yeah, that's something that's worth more discussion.
So it kind of feels like whether or not the GitHub project has a release, that's the signal that tells us there's something serious and ready. It may be an alpha release. They may say in the README, this is really buggy or, something, but it is intended for public consumption. But it feels like if there's no release yet, it's almost a little unfair or disingenuous to be featuring those in the regular search results list of projects. And so I wonder if maybe a different solution, like a separate page for modules in progress or something that displays GitHub projects that have no release, whether that might be clearer to make that distinction.
So the thing is, when you search for projects in backdropcms.org, the results have a download link. It says how many downloads. It shows a version. So if these things do not exist, we can style those things differently and say this is under development, no stable release yet. Or, but the thing is, how do we distinguish between no stable release and not even ported yet? Like some developers have started porting it and they just need people to test it, but others are not ready for a release at all. So it's in progress, right? So we need to distinguish these states, and I don't know, I can't think of any way. Maybe we can have this discussion like in the next meeting. In 2 weeks from now or earlier if the opportunity arises, and just keep that in mind as an option, that instead of creating project nodes on project release, create them on project creation. GitHub project creation, that's what I mean. So yeah, it's good to know that that's an option. Another thing that was mentioned in the chat was, and also I think someone created an issue and then I pointed them because they created the issue in the core queue, and they complained that then when they were searching in the project browser, they wouldn't get the results that they would expect, like partial word matches. And how things work is that basically the project browser sends the request to backdropcms.org and it pulls the results from there. So although it seems, so yeah, we consume the results from, so if the search doesn't work on the main site, it doesn't work on the project browser. So yeah, there's an issue already in the backdropcms.org queue in the ops group, which is sort of like aiming to improve on those things like partial word matching. There's another issue, a smaller issue that says to decrease I think currently it only searches for words that have 3 letters or more. And we're thinking to reduce that to 2 or something like that.
Yeah, that's my
Oh yeah, there you go. So yeah, I actually, when the person raised the issue, which I closed up, I might be able to find it real quick. I looked at the code that pulls the data and I figured out that, yeah, that's why we didn't have a previous core queue issue. Let me just find that. Yeah, so the issue that is now closed in the core queue is issue 5344. And the respective issue in the backdropcms.org queue is 844. I'm not sure where.
Let's see.
Yep. And that was a new issue that was created. Yeah. So yeah, other than that, a silly thing that came to mind when Tim previously started talking and he was muted, how we can engage people to participate more either in these meetings or in the silly sort of like game to play with the Backdrop Live meetings. Someone at work said that they create excuse my friends, a bullshit bingo thing. I don't know if that's a term. So it's actually when things happen, you have a bingo, a form of a bingo that you jot down things happening, like someone talks when they're muted, someone mentions Drupal when they mean Backdrop, someone like one of the pets just passes by the screen, things like that, and maybe people can win things, or I don't know, free consultation or something. It could be a way to reach out people, like we have this game or whatever, and then maybe there's a lottery or something and they get something out of it. But yeah, that's another idea I had. I don't remember of any other outreachy things at the moment. Nothing comes to mind. But
one other thought that I'd had with regards to the collection of modules is, and this will be a kind of an incremental project, but there's a lot of cases where, and because you don't have category searching, you might search for something and you get one project and not realize that there's actually a relevant project. And I don't know if they're brought in as nodes. I don't know whether we can use another content type to be able to kind of say, actually, I want to create an article about security modules, and I want to be able to link to each of these individual nodes and talk about the use cases and talk about why you might use one module rather than another, or it could, you know, the stuff around dates, or all the stuff around views or web forms and stuff, and you might not know that in order to do something that you might have to search on a couple of different keywords, but the functionality is very similar.
one idea that I have there is we pull information for the creation of the project nodes from .info files, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And we have allowed .info files to include tags or categories. We can add fields, I assume, to the project nodes that are vocabularies, and then these could be tags. So if a module comes up that doesn't do exactly what you are looking for, it might have several tags, which could be either the functionality, like as you said, date, it's related to dates, right? Or fields. The other thing that we could do is we could allow manual organization, but that would need some management on our end. Initially, it would have to be by the group of people that are managing any aspect of the main site. So module maintainers would have to come to us and say, hey, my module is related to web form, so I would like a tag that says it's like part of that ecosystem of the web form module, right? And initially it could be manual, but then we could look for ways to automate it. But I think that tags would work. One thing that puzzles me is how the project browser thing, let me just confirm what I was about to say, that the project browser allows browsing by tags or categories, but I might be wrong about that. I know that there's some sort of filtering. I know it's how popular or if it had a recent release, but there might be other filters. And I'm sure we have an issue somewhere to expose what you just said, like categories. Let me just.
Martin, the thing you described with kind of discussion of different approaches, different modules in the category, that sounds like a good candidate for a page in the user guide on top.
I did open a ticket to suggest that we probably needed in the docs, you know, as a start of a 10.1 around security that could talk about, you know, what are the possible security issues, what can you do to mitigate them, and what different modules there are to help you with this. Because for me that was quite a tricky one to know exactly what to search on to get the various the various modules that can help with securing your site. So I think I think docs might be the right place for these sorts of pages. Just to and I've seen them on Drupal where there's been like a page that will compare a number of different modules.
Yeah.
Around a particular theme. I don't, and I think different categories might lend themselves to different approaches. But I think security was one that first came to mind because there's so many different aspects that you would be hunting around for a long time just to find the relevant modules and understand the pros and cons of one module over another.
Yeah. So if we had tags and things were tagged as security, you could. But I understand that you mentioned that as an example of what you were trying to say.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things the documentation overall of Backdrop sorting needs is these sort of big picture discussions as a narrative, saying these are the important security issues, and here's links to the search terms that are going to pull up the modules that are relevant, or perhaps here's a listing of a bunch of modules that are relevant, although that will of course get stale over time.
I'm not sure how does this fit? We have an issue in the core queue where that I've raised, that I say that we should have a dedicated security section within the website, which sort of like is a collection of all security related settings for your site, and also has a sort of like a health check. So it's different from the status page in the sense that it's related only to security or dedicated only to security. And that could be an entry point for a link to an article, or this is what you can do to increase things. Another thing that we were discussing, and I'm not sure if this is implemented in, we recently merged a change that said allow more data to be added to .info files. And one thing that this must be one of the old issues, like 3-digit or 2-digit ones, is that we were discussing to allow, instead of just dependencies, we could allow modules to declare in the .info file enhances module X. So when you look at the module list of the modules that you already have installed, it says required by, or depends on whatever. It should also be enhances or enhanced by other modules. So in other words, provide a mechanism for modules to suggest other modules that are not necessarily dependencies, but they improve things, and the other way around.
But you would have to have that module installed in order to see whether it enhances. So.
Yeah. Then we would think to sort of like they would need to have to be a way, sort of like a consistent way of being able to expose that information in the project browser and the module search or the project search in the main site. But as I say, look, these are all very useful ideas and like baby steps. Not everything has to happen in one go, so long as we keep discussing these. But my point was that we already have some relevant issues in the queue. And I'm good. I'm glad now that back in the days, people used to complain that we keep issues for, we create many issues for too many things, and then we should please close the inactive ones. But I'm one of the people that supports keeping them as to-do lists, because this is one of the situations where you say, yes, we need to go back to that eventually. And a person such as you, Martin, in this case, could go back in that issue, which might not have had any comment since 2019, and say, hey, I want to revive this.
Mm.
Just point out though that things like the page Martin describes, the security page and the documentation, that could be done as soon as someone submits it. You know, we don't need to build up an infrastructure of tags and
Yes, yeah, because it's just going to be
write the
words.
sucker, post it. It's up, it's there.
Yeah, and the way to go about it is, I know that certain of us in the community already have authoring access in the docs side. You can request it, Martin, but if you feel more
Right.
comfortable putting something together in a Word document, then you can comment Zulip and say, hey guys, this is a link to a document that I think should be in that section, and then we may either give you direct access to put it in the docs, or one of us that already has access will put it there, and then we can also get feedback to improve it on it.
Yeah.
So that's a way to start.
Yeah, and it might be worth sort of having authoring. I presume you can kind of save something as unpublished, but then
Yes.
other people with authoring access will be able to see it. So that would possibly be the best way, because Word documents not going to be very good with sort of links and getting a feel for how it would be presented. So maybe that's the maybe that's the key. And I'll have a go at drafting, but I definitely want input on around the security aspects. But I'm happy to sort of sketch out and do according to what I know, but then get other people's input. It's probably easier to give feedback on something that's created than to say, right, you go and write something. So if I do an outline and then get people to input.
I've put a link in the Zoom chat with the pointing to that issue that I was talking about, the dedicated privacy and security section under configuration. And there's a lot of bullet points and ideas that people over time came and chimed in to say things. So I hope it provides an inspiration for what you're about to write.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah, and I also post things about how Drupal does, like there's a security review module, apparently a contrib module, Drupal, that does what similar thing, and also WordPress have that site health thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll have a look at that and see how far I get.
All right. Anything else outreach related that anyone wants to bring up?
One other outreach related thing, which I think I'd mentioned on Zulip, is we possibly could do with having a slightly better presence on LinkedIn. Given if our target is sort of small businesses and small organizations, it's
so how there's currently a few people in the Usual Suspects group, as I call them, that are managing either a Twitter or Facebook or YouTube sort of like accounts. And we're happy to sort of like delegate and crowdsource that work. So if you're interested to help with that, what I would do is I would start a new thread.
What you have to do to create an actual company page is you have to say that you're that you have a role. You have to put in your job thing that you have a role with this company, and then it can create a company, and you can say you're authorized to create a company of Backdrop CMS, and you can create a page and do that. And it might be a sort of good place that, you know, everyone who's sort of part of our community, they can follow the page, we can put out official things and people can share it to their networks.
Yep.
I would be happy to, but I don't have an official role at Backdrop, so I don't think I can really put it on my employment. But I think someone,
I think that we could set up a company, like, and I'll bring that up. But in order to start this discussion and remember it, because unfortunately, I'm not keeping any notes. How I would go about it is, if you could please create a thread in the Backdrop Julep chat that says LinkedIn, something like that.
Yeah.
We can start a discussion going there.
yeah, sure.
And we already have something that can be as roles. So we already have members of the project management committee.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
We have 2 founders, we have core committers, and then the rest of the people can be either core contributors or just developers or companies, offering services which we consider part of the community, part of the organization, so part of the business. But yeah, that's a nice idea, because people use LinkedIn, professionals at least. It's the my view of LinkedIn is the professional version of Facebook or something like that. Yeah, thanks for that idea. So we're at the top of the hour, and the dev meeting is about to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the broadcast, the recording, and I'll see you all on the next meeting. All right. Thanks for joining and watching. See you guys.